So Mark's already said that we talked a couple weeks ago about having this conversation for real, not rehearsed, and trying to engage dialogue among ourselves for our own good and as a model for tonight. And so we agreed that we would talk about our perspectives of alcohol use in community and try to do the work of opening up our assumptions, suspending them before one another, and engaging to see how God would draw us deeper. So just welcome us to start that process. Did you want to start, Mark?
Yeah, I think I'll start. I'll try to make this short. It's not easy. My assumptions come out of an experience of at least 6 people that I love in my life being dead because of alcohol. So that's my grandfather, Gail's father, some other people that I probably shouldn't name. It's hard to talk about in the River context because I can feel like I'm a fundamentalist because I have such a strong experience. And I think the other thing is a lot of my family is quite poor, and alcohol in poor communities is very devastating. So it affects me when other people are drinking freely. I feel like it's not a solidarity or not an understanding of what people who are from poverty and alcoholism, how it devastates. And then I'm torn because I see other people who are like, they're drinking really responsibly, right? So it's like, Daniel and Marie, I was in their house and they have this beautiful new home and they got a liquor cabinet. And that's a real trigger for me. I see that and I just feel like, I literally kind of, and then I would relax and it's like, okay, Daniel and Marie they're not boozing it up here. They're not, he's not throwing glass plates at night, after he's had 3 martinis after a hard day at the hospital. So I feel torn, I feel this like very strong experience and a strong aversion. And then I do see people drinking irresponsibly, right? So it's not like, oh, everybody who has liquor cabinets is drinking completely responsibly. It's like, oh my God, I know people who have drinking problems. So it's this torn, I feel torn. So that's kind of where I'm at.
Thanks for sharing, Mark.
Yeah.
I guess I can go next. I'm glad that you said that. I feel very, what's the word? Almost sort of naive or unexposed to it. Like I never really liked alcohol until like my 20s.
Yeah.
And I personally have never had an issue with drinking too much, but I think also I've never had a close friend or a family member that's had a problem with alcohol. So it's interesting to me because as I hear your story, it both feels devastating because I know you, but there's also this part of that feels like removed, like I'm removed from that reality. I'm just noticing that. So I guess Marie and I don't know what you're gonna say, but we'll drink, a drink every now and then, and we enjoy it, but I don't know personally someone who has a huge issue with it.
And part of the problem with sharing that strong thing is I don't want to shut down people who God made alcohol. You know what I mean? It's part of Jesus' story. So, it's that painful connection. So I'm just aware, having shared that I don't want you guys to feel like you can't share something that's completely opposite.
I can share next. Yeah, I do appreciate you sharing. And I'm obviously married to Daniel, so a lot of overlap. And to things I'll kind of tag on. the context that I grew up in is one where alcohol was both accepted and not idolized. So ever since I was little, I see grandmas mixing beer and Coke.
This is your dad's mom?
That is my mom's mom. Oh, it's on the Greek
It's
side.
a Greek side, beer and Coke, woo! Sounds
And,
terrible.
once a week on Sunday after church, Grandma's got her beer and Coke mixed together, and it's fine. She probably drank not even half a beer in that beverage.
The sugar's probably worse for her.
Probably. Anyway, so I grew up around alcohol. We always had an alcohol cabinet in my home, usually, and a hard liquor would not run out for years in the cabinet. We would rarely pull it out. My parents were very aware if there was someone who had an issue, so we actually didn't serve alcohol at parties. But if it's like this one person was over, they might have one drink together with that person. So, and my dad doesn't like the taste of alcohol, so it would just be like kind of a little bit sometimes. So I grew up around that. I never, really drank it. So in Greek culture, you can drink whenever you want at any age. So I tasted it, and it was just kind of whatever of an neutral experience. And I do, as Daniel said, enjoy a beverage here and there. The added layer, I think, from my experience is that on the one hand, I am removed in my family sense, that there really isn't a sensation of alcohol problems in my immediate family, yet I am a therapist, so I see the damaging power of any kind of addictive substance all the time. And that's always, it's a confusing experience in some ways, because on one level, I don't relate with it.
Yeah.
That it's not about to take that hold on me, and yet I see how it kills, how it devastates and pulls. Worked with couples who divorced over alcohol, or children's custody getting moved around based on
Those
alcoholism.
are probably my relatives.
They might have been Mark's personal relatives. So I've seen all this. This is the reality, and more often than not, I'm seeing that than, oh yeah, sure, we gotta have a drink every now and then. So I have that tension within me where I'm sort of like, there it is again, kind of through my revolving door. And yet I don't feel that personal conviction for myself, or I feel fine. But sometimes the tensions come out when I'm with groups, and maybe that is similar to my parents used to serve wine at parties, and then they stopped when they realized people were drinking too much and driving home. So I kind of sometimes feel that, like, oh, maybe we should scale back when we have people, like a bunch of people over. And then I hear stories like yours, and I think, like, okay, maybe we should just rework the whole system and throw out the liquor cabinet. So, it's sunset. I think that sums it up.
For me, I think just in my family, alcohol was always kind of a very neutral thing, and it was always done with like celebrating things, and it was always done in a lot of moderation, and I think with a lot of caution. And I think my parents really put that in us, and of course, like, had my own experiences like in college and realizing what were my limits. But I think that seeing that as like an enjoyment and kind of a bonding thing with family and with friends has been, a positive experience. But I think similar to Marie, where I've worked with a lot of kids and their struggles with alcoholism and the impact of living in an alcoholic family, I'm just seeing that part, and I think then that gives this almost ugly view of alcoholism. And I think when I see that, that makes me look at people around me, and I notice that I have a reaction towards my friends or family members that drink more than I think is healthy, and I think that those concerns are real, and I think that always feels important for me to want to talk about, because I see how that impacts kids that I work with, and see that, well, that could easily be different and in my family. And so there's a part of me that feels in part of being in community, to be sensitive of kind of what are the needs of the people that are there, and to have conversation. And for me, I feel like that's something that I would want to take into consideration. And I had no idea about kind of just your family background, and hearing that makes me feel like, well, there's a different kind of a relating of wanting to care for you in some ways too. And so I think, I don't know what that looks like, but I think that there's more like, oh, I understand this part of Mark and where that's coming from. And maybe for me it feels more neutral, but I think that a part of me caring about you is kind of revisiting that conversation.
Yeah. I feel like I wear these two hats, right? I got the pastor hat and then a human being hat, and I don't want to use the pastor hat to hammer down young adults in the river. You know what I mean? And, like, I don't know. The conversation could go in so many different directions, but one of the things that troubles me is when I see people drunk at weddings. It's like, and I've been accused of drinking at weddings. I never drink at weddings because I like to dance. And I don't want anybody to ever say, Mark, you were out of your control. You're out of control when you're drinking. It's like, no, I just like to dance exuberantly. But, when I see people, I feel like it just dishonors the couple. You know what I mean? Like, there were people drunk at Ephraim and Christine's wedding, and I just felt like, oh, how sad. Ephraim and Christine didn't see it, but I felt like, okay, you came here to be part of a community, and what you did was you got hammered, and it's embarrassing. So I don't know.
I mean, I'll admit, I have a really hard time, like, I usually will not, well, sometimes I will, like, if there is a beer at home, I will drink it, but if I'm, like, at a party or if I'm with a bunch of friends who are also enjoying alcohol, I do find that it's a lot harder to be mindful of some of those things, absent if there was someone that I knew was there and I knew that person was going to have an issue, then I may be very mindful of that.
Yeah.
And I wonder sometimes in those situations if, I might have one drink, but if somebody else is having like multiple drinks, like how much is my one drink contributing to somebody else's multiple drinks?
Sure.
So that's like always a challenge. Like, well, I like alcohol and it's fine for me, but how much am I being a problem really, or how much am I enabling other people?
Sure. I mean, once I was at a dinner where somebody was like doing steak and whiskey, because I guess that's a thing, and they wanted me to drink the whiskey, and so I sipped the whiskey, and then later on, somebody who was drunk defended their drunkenness, like, Mark Pfeiffer Houseman drinks. I saw him drink whiskey at that party. And then I was like, I didn't drink whiskey. I didn't drink anything for years after. You know what I mean? Because it just felt like, okay, you're just using that. Anyway. But I do feel like everybody's got to be, I feel like people need to grow up and be responsible. It's like, I do think we have so much more alcoholism in our culture because it's like this forbidden fruit that you get when you go off to college. Versus like, Italian families where there's wine and kids are sipping their dad's wine. So.
I think drinking is one of those addictions that, or alcoholism is one of those things that seem more acceptable than a lot of other addictions.
Yeah.
I think that it's like common in a lot of people who are very successful and in the business world, and that's just acceptable of what you do.
Yeah.
And so I think that kind of gets skirted under our society because it doesn't seem like it's a harmful addiction.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, one of the other things that is in my mind is, I've studied a lot of ancient Christianity, and before, the Reformation, there was this whole thing about giving up things as a form of self-denial and learning to deny myself. So I would give up wine, not because wine is bad, but as a way to say yes to God and to say no to my self-will. And, Michelle, I know you guys were reading The Life of St. Anthony, and that's a huge part of his life was this growth in self-denial. And it feels like that's just completely out of our culture. And, like if you came up to somebody in the river and said, I'm fasting, people would think something weird. I mean, nobody's come up to me and said that. It just feels like, just like we have this blind spot. It's like, it's all about the party. It's all about the joy. It's like party every night, It's like start partying on Thursday. Fun, So I don't know how to, I feel very allied to some of those people from previous centuries. I feel like, oh, they're my friends,
Mark, do you think that for the people that do want to party every night, but aren't getting hammered
Yeah.
per se. What do you think the role is that? I mean, like, our small group will frequently have get-togethers where there's alcohol, and sometimes I feel like it's like a selling point.
Yeah.
Like, we're gonna have this liquor.
Sure.
Come hang out, and then people get really excited. So I'm just wondering, like, well, is there a role for that? How much of that, is that keeping us from growing more in certain ways or becoming better followers of Christ? Is it helping us be relevant to other people I don't know.
I mean, what do you think? I'm not there, right, so.
Yeah, I really, I don't know. I think about it a lot because, on the one hand, it's like, well, there's nothing wrong with a few drinks. But then on the other hand, I've definitely been in situations where it's like, hey, those few drinks turn into more than a few drinks. And then people start acting differently than they would if they had no drinks. And then the night kind of changes. And then I have people come up to me afterwards and say, like, did you notice what happened last night? I don't really feel safe. So
That would be the moment I would.
Well, yes, yeah. So then I think, like, okay, well, in the future, what is the answer? I mean, and I know it's not so much trying to make a decision, but what is the role then in alcohol? Does that mean that there shouldn't be a role? Because it's leading because it's a potential to lead to issues. Is that something that, like, where do you draw the line? I don't know.
I don't know.
I'm just musing now.
I think like
Last comment.
Okay.
You make-
I think that context is so huge too, because Dan and I talk about how when we lived in San Diego, we probably swayed more on the like drinking more than our average friend side of things. Like we had friends who would
In your
drink at all. Yeah, in our church community, small group, same age kind of crew. And even like, I don't know, secular friends, like there was categories of groups, but in our context, like we tended to be more on the drinking more than others rather than drinking less than others. And so we didn't really notice it because we don't drink a lot, but it's like other people weren't gathering around alcohol or whatever and be like, Dan and I go on a date and we each have a glass of wine. It's like, cool. And then we come up here and it's like apparently really different in that we tend more to be like, we're more on the side of drinking less than a lot of our average friends here. And so then all of a sudden we see it and we're like, wait a minute, what's going on? Because it was fine when we were drinking this amount there, and then now we're here, and now it's like so much more visible. And should we be drinking? Because the questions about like, are we participating in something that's unhelpful, or but I don't have an answer to it. But I think it's just the context of the world that we're in makes a huge difference.
Sure.
Like even just thinking, when we visit Greece, like everybody drinks. It's super unacceptable to get drunk. So it's like, no problems here. And then other contexts in the U.S., it's like, a lot of people are trying to get drunk. So it's
On
like,
purpose.
well, I don't really like that. So the context is huge, I think, for me at least.
So that is a beginning.